But here's the deal, the real deal. What got me from $0 in revenue to over $100,000 in revenue a year without the burnout and canine chaos, without the drama and headaches, and without giving up on things when they got really hard is 125% this invisible practice that I applied versus any, outwardly practical, specific systems or processes. This is the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Welcome, furry friend lovers. Welcome to the 15th episode of the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Here we are at 15 already. I do appreciate your being here, and I really hope that in some of these episodes, if not all, that I'm bringing you some practical business tips and insights that will help you to earn six figures without the canine chaos or burnout. Because I believe that in this world of dog sitting, these are two of the most challenging things to accomplish, which is success without the canine chaos or burnout. In addition to giving you the best business practices, tools, and systems that are, practical, I really think it's important that you know the inner knowledge, the inner tools and practices that have been what I contribute to the real reason for my success as a home-based dog sitter. Often these are the inner tools and tips that a lot of people brush off as not very significant because it's so easy to get caught up in what to do instead of how to be. But here's the deal, the real deal. What got me from $0 in revenue to over $100,000 in revenue a year without the burnout and canine chaos, without the drama and headaches, and without giving up on things when they got really hard is 125% this invisible practice that I applied versus any, outwardly practical, specific systems or processes. I can actually credit lessons from what I call my midlife crisis, or what maybe most of society would call a midlife crisis, but I really prefer to call it my metamorphosis. And, I can take the lessons that I learned from that as the trigger to why I was able to not only build my home-based dog sitting business quickly, but also why I was able to fall and get back up again and again and again, not only better, but faster every single time I fell. You see, it was really because of this metamorphosis that I went through that I manifested my exit from the corporate world, you could say. That's a whole different story. And I did that so that I could follow my passion in serving others while doing what I love. I really felt, and still to this day believe, that we are all meant to come here and discover our own unique talents and find a way to use them to serve others in this world. And so I set out on a mission to do that, because I believe this not only brings goodness to others, but this is what really truly fulfills us as well. And that's when I became a certified holistic health and life coach, thinking that this is, my path. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm great at helping people through things and getting over challenges and battles and finding their way and, dealing with the emotional, vulnerable stuff without judging people and just being there, holding space for them at those times of need. And it's been wonderful. I love that. I still love to do that. But if you've heard in previous episodes, you may have already, that I made a confirmed decision to only do what I loved when I left the corporate world, along with the fact that it has to be something I love and serve somebody. And that's what led me to starting my dog sitting business, so that I could just add income to some of the savings and the income that I was bringing in from coaching one-on-one. Because I loved caring for dogs my whole life. Ever since I was a teenager, I volunteered at shelters and I fostered, and I've always cared for dogs. I've studied them. I've read, umpteen books on the study of wolf packs in the wild, because dogs are 99.9% wolf still, right? So, it's just always been a passion of mine. Then, much to my surprise, my dog sitting business took off way faster than my coaching business, and way faster than I expected. Really, it took off and became a business when I didn't even expect it to become an official quote unquote business. So before I knew it, my dog sitting hustle was just completely like my world all on its own. It just took over everything. And I truly believe this is because of the foundational tools and practices that I learned during my metamorphosis, during my midlife crisis, and through my life coaching certification days and experience, and expertise in that. So by the time I started dog sitting, I had already begun walking the talk that I preached as a life coach, if you will. And this is why I was able to succeed so quickly with the least amount of headaches, setbacks, dramas, hassles, whatever you want to call it, while maintaining my love for what I was doing almost all the time. I'm still human, okay? But what this means for you is that you get the lessons and the tools of not only a dog sitter who has a successful dog sitting business and has figured out a way to do it in a way that does not cause burnout and reduces the canine chaos so that it's manageable, so that it's sustainable for the long haul. But you also get the experience, the lessons, the tools of a life coach. Okay, so you get to get that along with the tips, processes, and success strategies of a business. But let's be honest, when you run your own business, you are on a journey of personal growth. And sometimes to get through that journey of personal growth, we all need a helping hand. We all need somebody who's been there, done that, and can kind of see things that we can't see because they're not in it. And that's what a life coach does. Okay. So as a life coach, I helped clients do everything from overcoming depression or getting in shape to even finding and pursuing their passion, their purpose. And in order to do this, we had to find the root cause of what was causing their depression or what was preventing them from following their heart, their passion, their purpose. And this always came back to their inner habits every single time. See, that's the thing. That's what's so cool about life coaching is you start to realize, wow, it's really so simple. It's all of the simple answers are the foundation to everything. And if you just keep coming back to that, you'll always find that's how you address the root cause of everything. And when you start to learn these things and you can consciously choose your inner habits and apply life lessons learned to your business, you'll struggle less. You'll overcome obstacles so much quicker. And you're actually going to enjoy it along the way while also growing your business faster. One of the most common foundational methods to succeeding at anything in life, be it business, overcoming depression, losing weight, whatever it is, right, is something that is so simple that most people brush it off as inconsequential. Unfortunately, a lot of the keys to success in life begin with the simplest solutions. And this is pretty much why we struggle, I believe, because us humans always like to make things more complicated than they need to be, right? Am I right or am I right? Right? We all do it. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just a natural thing that we all do. I haven't figured that out why. But it makes sense because it's hard to think how huge goals or obstacles can be easily accomplished by seemingly overly simple methods. It just feels like a paradox, right? But here's where the misconception is. It's that simple doesn't always mean easy. And, disclaimer, the simple answer to building a business quicker with more ease and while enjoying it along the way is, mic drop, not always easy. But once you master this inner foundational principle, practice, whatever you want to call it, your outer world is going to thank you. And now I'm going to share this powerful and transformative practice with you shortly. I promise I'm getting to it. But first, let me share with you the consequences if you don't implement this inner practice. Number 1, every single challenge you encounter becomes at least twice as hard to overcome. Number 2, you attract even more challenges. You attract even more obstacles and issues, headaches, hassles. All of a sudden, if you're not practicing these inner principles, you end up kind of creating more havoc in your life, right? More chaos in your life, your business, however you want to look at it, all the above. Number 3 is you miss out on new ideas that can improve your life. This one is, it seems kind of menial, but it's so huge, right? Because it's ideas that keep us moving forward. So it's super important to not miss out on new ideas that can improve your life. And a fourth one is you typically earn less money, right? Because you're probably not coming up with new ideas. You're more focused on and having your time consumed by more challenges. And and then it takes twice as long to overcome those challenges, right? All the reasons before this. So, usually the result of that is you typically earn less money overall. And I would say really a huge one to just kind of button it all up, even though there's probably more I could come up with, is that it may prevent you from succeeding altogether. Literally. It sounds hyperbole, I get it, but when you hear what this practice is, you'll see how much it can affect every single second of your day, every single moment in your life. And so while these are, really big claims, I get it. They sound like really big claims, but I know they're all true because I know firsthand what life was like before I learned about this practice versus after I started implementing this practice in my life. Okay. It wasn't a change overnight. It wasn't like poof, from black to white. It took time. It takes time. It's still a practice. It's still something I work on. It's still something I mess up, but I get better and better and better. And therefore my life gets better because of it. Because looking back, I can see where I tripped myself up in so many areas of my life by not applying this practice. But once I essentially coded this method into my internal operating system, my entire life changed significantly for the better. And this is really because the inner practice I'm giving you today is directly connected to one of the 7 Hermetic principles, which are principles from the 1st century AD that are believed to govern all existence and the universe. Pretty wild, right? It's literally been, it's that old of a principle. And I don't know about you, but the older I get and the more I learn and the more I learn about history and the real history versus just the history we've been taught and you name it, the more I realize, like, back in the day, way, 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 way before you and I were ever thought of, they were pretty darn smart. They knew a lot of stuff that we don't even know to this day, or we're just discovering at this day, right? So I don't know about you, but that, along with my instincts, my gut, my intuition, says that a lot of these things are true, especially when I try them on for size and it turns out like, oh wow, look at that, it actually does make a difference in my life. Just as this one has. So this law, one of the 7 hermetic principles that I'm going to share with you today, has to do with, or I'm sorry, the practice that I'm going to share with you today has to do with one of the 7 hermetic principles that I'm going to discuss today here, which is the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence plays a direct role in your reality. It states what you think and feel on the inside is reflected in your outer world. And you may have heard the phrase, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is where the phrase comes from. That phrase is directly related to the law of correspondence. So how valuable would it be to be able to apply a simple practice and have it automatically shift your business and your life? Well, I'm guessing that you're going to find a lot of value in this once you start applying this practice. And this practice is simply being mindful of your words. It's consciously choosing your communication, your language, and I don't mean, what language you're speaking in, but, the way you speak to yourself in your head, the way you speak out loud, everything to others, so everything from self-communication to outer communication with others, to written communication. It's simply being mindful of your words. What I like to say is change your words, change your business. Change your words, change your life. Change your language, change your communication, change your life. Because words carry frequency, and like frequency attracts like frequency, right? When you tune your frequency to a specific, number on the radio station, dial on the radio station, you've heard this one before, you get a specific type of music. You get specific tunes, right? So tune it to a certain frequency, get a specific vibe, right? And you change it and you get a different vibe. But my favorite example that I think best displays the power of the words that we use, be it in our minds or verbally, is the experiment of a Japanese scientist named Dr. Masaru Emoto, and I'm probably completely destroying his name, but it's Dr. Emoto, Emoto, if you want to look him up. He experimented with water in various ways. And one way that I found was so fascinating is he took water from rivers and lakes and he labeled them with positive words like love, thank you, and wisdom. Then he took additional samples and labeled them with negative words such as hate, evil, and you disgust me, which I thought was pretty funny. Next, he froze these samples, okay? He took all of these samples that he froze and he had labeled with either positive words or negative words. And once it was all frozen, he took pictures of them, using, of course, highly sophisticated photographic machines and cameras and whatnot. And the results were absolutely incredible, because the water labeled with the positive words revealed these gorgeous geometrical and symmetrical crystals resembling snowflakes when they, photographed them. Whereas the water labeled with the negative words showed asymmetrical and, scattered and unharmonious forms, you could say. Seriously, go look it up, because me describing it to you is nowhere near as incredible as actually seeing these photographs with your own two eyes. So it's pretty wild. I feel like this is a fabulous example of how the words you use, either out loud or in your own mind, have an effect, a deep effect, a strong effect on your outer world, much like these words had on the frozen water. Some people seem naturally good at this, at, having words and language that they use that are uplifting, that have positive effects on their reality, while others have to consciously choose to change their words to a more positive framework. Okay, now I don't mean that, you just have to be positive all the time. You're going to have yin and yang. You have to have the ups, you have to have the downs. You can't just sit there and scream at something to stop happening and expect it to just stop happening. like you can't just sit there and say, I love you, 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 at your dogs while they're peeing in the house and expect them to just stop peeing in the house, is what I'm saying. Okay. So this is not, false positivity, right? But I'll get into some examples later as to what I mean, so that you can kind of have a better idea of what I'm talking about. But if you're like I used to be, it's, and you're like one of these people who has to really come to this conscious awareness that you're using words and language that aren't positively affecting your life, and you have to consciously choose to change that and then become aware of it and get better at shifting it and rewiring your brain to something that's more effective, then don't worry, it's not your fault, because the words that we use regularly are really only a product of our environment. All right. And this literally includes everything from the moment we're born up until the day, now, up until right now, right? This includes you listening to me on this podcast. This includes your education, your friends, family, even coworkers, TV, music, social media. All of this has a large impact on the words that we choose to use, books that we read, everything, right? Everything is, our brain is the sponge taking it all in. For example, when I learned about the power of words during my metamorphosis, often referred to as my midlife crisis, I began examining the lyrics of the songs I had most resonated with throughout my life, because I was always into music. My career started out in music, and I was very fascinated with how the songs could have literally affected the trajectory of my life. And I was amazed when I started revisiting some of the songs that I listened to. Do you have that song or two or five or whatever that you just can go back and be like, I listened to that throughout my whole life at least 500,000 times, right? Okay, or at least 100,000 times. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have those songs that I go back and I can just listen to over and over again and never get tired of. And, those usually are the songs that we most resonate with for some reason or another. And when I went back and I examined this, I was so amazed at the correlation between those songs and my life, my reality, my experience. And what's more is the songs that I resonated with after my metamorphosis are so much more positive and inspiring and uplifting and motivating than the songs of my past life, right? Where I was more of a a victim, whereas the songs post Metamorphosis are more of, I am the captain of my ship, whereas the songs before my metamorphosis are or were more of a victim mindset. Isn't that wild? Even though I never really played the victim much in life, outwardly, I think on the inside, I did when I resonated with these songs. And I think in a lot of ways that showed up in my life, especially my love life. And songs are often about love, right? So it makes sense. So once you recode your internal operating system to habitually speak in ways that are not only more positive, but more efficacious, you'll immediately begin to reduce your stress levels, your struggles, hidden roadblocks, you name it, while building your business. It's amazing how it works. It's so cool. But you just the best way to discover if I'm talking a bunch of mojo or if this is for reals, is to try it, because what do you have to lose, right? So just try it. And I feel quite confident to say, I guarantee you're going to see a shift if you give it enough time. It's like I said, there's a lag. Now, if you want to try this, the most effective way to shift your behavior is through hypnotism. But since you probably don't have a hypnotist on speed dial, the second most effective way is through repetition. All right. That, just know, scientifically speaking, when it comes to the brain, when it comes to neuroplasticity of your neural networks within your brain, the second most effective way to rewire your brain to get new synapses between two neural networks and build a new neural network is through repetition. So the more you become aware of the words you use that aren't serving you and you replace them with the words that do, the more effective it will be, the more results you will start to see in your life. And okay, I promise some, more practical tips. So I know that I've been speaking on a higher theoretical kind of ethereal level. So to shift gears and present some practical examples so that you can more easily discover the ways that you use words and better identify how you want to upgrade your communication so that you can upgrade your business, let's go through a couple that I picked out that were most common phrases that I know either I or some of my clients that I've coached have struggled with, or just, common ones you hear often in society and with, friends and family and, whatever, coworkers. So some of the most common words and phrases that I've helped others and myself with are, I don't know. All right, that's number one. I would say that's one of the most popular ones in everything, is just saying, I don't know. People say, I don't know, so easily. And it's tripping you up more than you realize, right? Because when you say, I don't know, your brain automatically goes, okay, I don't know that. It's not going to get curious and try to figure it out, typically, unless you follow it up with something like, but let me find out, something to that effect, right? A lot of times people just automatically say, I don't know, and just leave it at that. Okay, so I'll go into these a little bit deeper, but let me list them all out first. Number 2 is, why can't I? That one, like I said, I'll go into deeper, but that one was definitely a personal one for me. Number 3 is, I messed up, or, change that to any iteration you want. I screwed up. I, throw in a explicitive there, up, whatever, right? Number 4 is, I'm fill in the blank. Okay, now insert your most common insult, like so stupid, I'm so stupid, or an idiot, or not good at all, or not good at this, or, you name it. I mean, nowadays, what I hear all the time is, I have ADHD, or I have, PTSD, I don't know, give me an acronym, right? I hear that all of the time. And it's so damaging to our reality, to our potential, because any word that's inserted after the word I or I am is very powerful to your psyche. Very powerful. All right, so moving on. Number 5, I have to. Okay. Number 6, I should. And number 7, I can't. And I have to say right now, I can't stop the dog behind me snoring. So I apologize if you hear that. You might not. It's really low. She's got the sweetest little snore, but we're just going to let her keep snoring. But I can stop her from that, but I don't want to. All right. Let's put it that way. So what are some ways that you could turn these 7 phrases into, if you say them, right? And hopefully my bringing them to the forefront will help you become more aware of if you're saying them. But what could you do if you are to turn these phrases into more positive and self-serving phrases? So let's go through this. Okay, number 1, can you change I don't know to I will figure it out? How about that one, right? Or change it to I don't know yet, but I'm working on it, or something, right? Something that tells your brain that you're going to stay in curiosity mode and you're going to keep, searching for resources or answers or ideas to whatever it is that you don't know at the moment. Okay. That's an easy one. Now, the number 2 was, why can't I? Okay. And I had mentioned that kind of strikes close to home for me. So, quick personal story on this one. Despite my knowledge and work on improving my words to improve my life, like I said, I'm still human and I still mess up, and I'm always working on this. I realized after the second or third, whatever it was, team member that I had to fire, that I was blocking myself from finding a stellar team member that actually did a great job. All right, how was I doing this? I was doing this by saying, why can't I find a good person to hire? I just said that over and over again. All right, when I kept saying, gosh, why can't I just find somebody who's good? Why can't I just find somebody who's reliable? Why can't I just find somebody who takes initiative? Why can't I? And what my brain did after this was go right into, well, that's because they aren't being raised right, or that's because they aren't, good people, whatever, I mean, I don't think I said that, but you know what I mean? Like, your brain just goes into like, what's wrong with them? Right? What's wrong with the entire populace? Which is easy to do. But after licking my prideful wounds at my self-inflicting doom, despite already learning not to weaponize my reality with the words that I use, I finally woke up and I changed it to, how can I find a good person to hire? So I went from, why can't I find a good person or a reliable person, to how can I find a good or reliable person to hire? And this automatically shifted my brain from being stuck in that, mode of what's wrong with everybody else, where I was completely powerless, right? Because that puts me in a position of there's nothing I can do about it because everybody else is wrong. Something's wrong with everybody else. It's not, I'm powerless, right? So what was I going to do? But when I shifted it to, how can I find a good person or a reliable person, then I automatically began focusing on a solution, right? It put me in a position of searching for a solution. And because I kept replacing it with, how can I, my very next applicant became my best and longest team member, who's still with me today yet. Okay. And that's because I got more resourceful. I started looking for things that I could do differently to get more quality applicants, which really brings up a very important point. And that is that the language, the words that you use, not only carries a frequency, but it also points your brain towards a direction. You know, in my example, like I said, when I was saying, why can't I find a good or reliable person? My brain focused on all the reasons why I couldn't, and often all of the reasons why people weren't good or reliable. Whereas once I changed the phrase to how can I could focus on the new resources. So just to point that out, that it's not just the frequency of the words that you use, but it's literally the way that it points. You know, it's like an arrow in your brain pointing you to different neurons to use. And one neuron had like a roadblock for me, and the other neuron said, yes, let's go this route because this is a new route to the solution. Okay. I don't know if that landed, but hopefully you understood my thinking there. Okay. So example number 3 is I messed up, or I screwed up, or whatever you want to put in there. But what if you replace this with I learned, or well, that was a huge lesson, you know, something to that effect. How could this shift your growth? Because what I've noticed is that the more I focus on the mistakes that I make and shame myself for it, the less that I learn from it, from mistakes that I've made, right? But if I remind myself that I'm a human who makes mistakes and I ask what I can learn from them, I continue to improve both myself and my business. That's just entrepreneurial 101 right there, folks, right? All right. So example number 4 is extremely powerful, as I mentioned. And it's something that people don't realize they say all of the time. And that is the words, I am. These are the most powerful words you can say. So whatever follows I am can have a strong positive or negative impact on your life and your business. A common phrase that I hear people say is, I am not good at XYZ, fill in the blank, right? Or I am bad at blah, 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 and so forth. So let's take the example of a client of mine who always struggled with telling new customers her price. I noticed in our sessions together that she always said things to me like, I'm not good at talking about prices with customers, or I'm not comfortable talking about my prices. But how much better do you think she would feel if she repeatedly told herself, I am confident about discussing my prices? You know, even if she didn't really truly believe it yet, but she just said that, right? Or she could even say something that's maybe more believable at first and say, I am working on being more confident about discussing my prices. Right? Say both of those out loud to yourself. Say, I am not comfortable talking about my prices, and then say, I am confident talking about my prices, or I am comfortable talking about my prices. Say both of those out loud to yourself and just notice the shift inside of you that takes place. Because when you say, I am confident about discussing my prices, you automatically feel more confident because your brain's wired to align with your identity. When your identity is that you're confident, you're automatically more confident. When you identify with lacking confidence, then you automatically lack confidence. It's really that simple. And the more you repeat confident I am statements or positive I am statements, the more confident you'll become, because you'll naturally begin to take steps that make you a more confident person, right? That make you a more capable person. And this all happens in the background because your brain is so phenomenal, okay? And it's going to do everything in its power to make sure that it aligns with the identity that you have. So when you say an identity statement, which is anything that follows the 2 words I am, or an iteration, I'm, I, whatever, you are automatically causing your brain to take action to align with that identity and not step outside the box, right? So you have to be very cognitive of what you say after the words I am. Okay, so moving on. The next example I gave was quote unquote, I have to. This one can have a major effect on how much you enjoy your business or don't enjoy your business. It's really, really easy to say, and I still do this all the time, and I'm totally working on this one, but it's really easy to say, I have to. For me, one of those is I have to do invoicing, or I have to pick up dog poop, or I have to seed the yard, whatever the case might be. And typically it's something that you don't always love to do, okay? Like picking up poop, doing invoicing, and seeding the yard are some of my least favorite things in life. let's be honest, all right? And it's something you don't always love to do, but if you repeatedly replace it with I get to do invoicing, or I get to pick up dog poop. Is, fill in the blank. I get to whatever. You're going to find a lot less resistance to doing it, which just makes life more enjoyable. Okay. So try that one on for size. Now, the sixth example was I should, which, as you know, I'm a T-Rob fan. I'm a Tony Robbins fan. And although I haven't really followed him much for the last few years, but I used to be super duper big into him. I think I've memorized everything. I've been to one of his events on leadership, and it was super cool. And, learned all about neuro-linguistic programming, and it's just fun stuff. Anything behavioral psychology, all that stuff. I'm a total nerd, but Tony Robbins is all about that, right? So I listened and learned from him on a lot of stuff. And one of the things that I just always crack up over is he says, if someone says I should, his response is, well, don't should all over yourself. It just always makes me laugh, which is, it's fun, right? It's fun to say to people. So I have completely stolen that line and I adopt it. So forgive me. I quote Tony Robbins. If you ever hear me say it, I give him all the credit. That's a great one. And, when you say I should, it's because it implies guilt or shame, doesn't it? And that's really why you don't want to be saying it, right? Because guilt and shame aren't very motivating. They're not very inspiring or uplifting, let's say, right? So, if you're always sitting there looking at yourself in the mirror saying I'm fat, how motivated are you going to be to go out and eat something healthy versus grab a Kentucky Fried Chicken, something like that, right? But instead, you can choose to shift it to I will, or I'm working on. So instead of I should, you can say I will, or I'm working on, or I am doing this. I am doing that, whatever it is, right? So just become more mindful of shoulding all over yourself. All right, enough said. Okay, so the last example is I can't. This one I am sure you've heard since you were a child. Okay, I know I did. And if you're young enough or old enough, if you're old enough, then you probably remember the children's book, Thomas and the Little Engine That Could. And the entire moral of that story, if you'd never heard of it before, was about shifting from saying I can't to I can. And what about the common phrase that you probably heard a gazillion times as a child, if you're anything like my family, which was can't, never could. Anytime I said I can't as a child, I think I like automatically my brain goes into the memory of my father saying can't, never could, or my mother saying can't, never could. Right? I heard that one so many times as a child. I must have said I can't a lot because, I think it's literally lasered into my brain now. And hey, Gratefully so, right? So again, all of these are just some of the common examples that I could think of, okay? I'm sure that there's plenty of other examples out there. And really the most powerful ones besides the I am statements are typically the statements that you say to yourself repeatedly and are the most unique to you in your situation. So pay attention to your words, become more aware. You know, in previous podcasts, I spoke about getting still with yourself, whether it's meditation, prayer, walking in nature without distractions, you name it. Some way to get still with yourself is, for me, the most powerful and easiest way to become more aware of things in life, more aware all around, you know, have better awareness all around. And that has helped me to be more aware of the words that I had been using and you know, still use. And when you pay attention, become more aware of the words that you use, and you choose to upgrade them so that you can upgrade your business, your life, whatever it may be, because it'll upgrade all of it. Trust me. Your inner neurological network will just magically, in a way, okay, in a way, magically create your outer environment. And again, I come back to the Hermetic saying, as within, so without. And on that note, I think I will let you go because I get to go do invoicing now. Until next time, thanks for listening. Happy tales to you.